The sun beat down on the empty stretch of country road, the kind where silence itself feels heavy, until it's broken by the screech of twisting metal and the thunderous crash of impact. A silver SUV spun wildly across the gravel, flipped once, and landed in a shallow ditch with a sound that made the earth itself seem to flinch. Smoke hissed up from the hood, and for a long, breathless moment there was nothing. No movement, no voice, just the sound of a distant bird and the faint ticking of a broken engine. Then a man ran into the scene, breath ragged, heart pounding, his boots throwing dust with every step. Eli Carter didn't think. He never thought when someone needed help. The 35-year-old single dad from the nearby town of Maple Ridge had been driving home from a construction site, his truck bed filled with old tools and a lunchbox that still smelled of peanut butter sandwiches his daughter had made for him that morning. But when he saw that SUV roll, all of that faded away. The man who rushed toward the wreck wasn't a tired worker anymore. He was a father, a protector, someone who couldn't bear to see another life slip away if he could stop it. Before the story continues, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of doing good even when no one's watching, then please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Touch of Kindness. It helps stories like this reach more hearts across the world. When Eli reached the wreck, he saw a woman inside, motionless, head tilted to the side, her seatbelt cutting deep into her shoulder. Smoke was filling the car now. He yanked at the door handle, but it was jammed tight. His mind raced. He grabbed a wrench from his tool bag and smashed the window, shielding his face as glass exploded outward. "Hey, can you hear me?" he shouted, his voice trembling. No answer. The smell of leaking gasoline hit him like a warning bell. He reached through the shattered window, cut her seatbelt with his box cutter, and pulled her out just as flames licked up the side of the vehicle. He dragged her across the gravel, his arms shaking from adrenaline and fear. When they were a safe distance away, he laid her gently on the ground. She was breathing, faint but steady. Her pulse trembled beneath his fingertips. "You're going to be okay," he murmured, not sure if he was telling her or himself. By the time the ambulance arrived, Eli had already disappeared. He didn't stay for the attention, the questions, or the cameras that arrived soon after. He just wiped the sweat and ash off his face, climbed back into his rusted truck, and drove home to his little girl. Later that night, as golden light from the kitchen lamp spilled across their small dining table, his daughter Rosie, only 8 years old, all bright eyes and messy curls, looked up from her homework. "Daddy, you smell like smoke." Eli smiled tiredly, ruffling her hair. "Yeah, sweetheart. Just a little fire by the road. Nothing to worry about." She squinted at him like she didn't believe it, then went back to drawing hearts on her paper. Eli didn't tell anyone what happened that day. He wasn't the kind to talk about himself. He'd already lived through too many storms, losing his wife to cancer 3 years earlier, working 3 jobs just to keep the lights on, and still making sure Rosie never went to bed feeling unloved. Every night before she fell asleep, he'd sit by her side and whisper, "The world's hard, Rosie, but we don't have to be." 2 days later, the news broke everywhere. Billionaire philanthropist Avery Marcel survives fiery car crash. Mystery rescuer still unknown. Avery Marcel. The name echoed across television screens and headlines. She wasn't just rich, she was influential, known for her tech empire and massive charity foundation. But now the entire country was obsessed with the question, who saved her life? Avery sat in her hospital room, staring at the news coverage of herself, feeling strangely hollow. She barely remembered the man's face, just flashes of sun, heat, and the sound of his voice telling her it would be okay. But she remembered his eyes, calm, steady, deeply human. "Find him," she told her assistant. "Please, I need to thank him." Meanwhile, Eli went back to work as usual, pouring concrete under the noon sun, his back aching but his heart content. He didn't want thanks. He'd seen too many people do good only for the cameras. He wanted Rosie to learn that kindness means helping quietly. But fate wasn't done with him yet. 3 weeks later, a black luxury car pulled up outside the construction site. Out stepped a tall woman in a white suit, her auburn hair pulled back neatly, her posture regal but warm. The workers froze. They all recognized her from TV. Eli, covered in dust, didn't. She looked around until her eyes found him. "Excuse me," she said softly. "Are you Eli Carter?" He nodded cautiously. "Yes, ma'am. What can I do for you?" Her voice trembled just slightly. "You already did." The words hung in the air. The other workers pretended to keep working but couldn't stop watching. Avery smiled faintly, eyes glistening. "You're the man who saved me. I've been searching for you for weeks." Eli blinked, almost embarrassed. "Ma'am, I just did what anyone would have done." She shook her head. "No. Most people would have kept driving." She stepped closer, her voice breaking a little. "You risked your life for someone you didn't even know." Eli shrugged. "You were in trouble. That's all that mattered." For a long moment neither spoke. Then Avery handed him an envelope. "Please, it's not enough, but it's something." He raised his hand gently. "I can't take that." "Why not?" she asked, almost pleading. "Because if I took money for doing the right thing," he said, "then it wouldn't be the right thing anymore." Avery stared at him, speechless. There was something humbling about this man, his rough hands, his soft eyes, his quiet strength. He didn't want fame, reward, or recognition. And maybe that was what shook her most. Days turned into weeks. Despite her busy world of boardrooms and media, Avery found herself thinking about Eli. The man had saved her life, then walked away like it meant nothing. But to her, it meant everything. She asked her assistant to find out more about him, but what she learned broke her heart. Eli lived in a small rented house, barely making ends meet. His daughter attended public school, often walking home alone because her dad's shifts ran late. The man who'd saved her life was struggling just to keep his own together. So she decided to help him, quietly. Without telling him, Avery contacted the construction company where he worked and anonymously donated funds to raise wages for all employees, ensuring Eli's position was made permanent with better benefits. She arranged for Rosie's school fees to be covered through a community scholarship fund. Eli never knew who was behind it. All he knew was that life had gotten just a little easier. But fate, once again, had other plans. One afternoon, Eli returned home to find a sleek black car parked in front of his house. Rosie was sitting on the porch steps, swinging her legs and chatting with a woman from the news, Avery Marcel. "Daddy, this is the lady you saved," Rosie chirped, grinning. Eli's jaw tightened. "Miss Marcel, I thought we talked about this." "I know," she said gently, "but I couldn't stay away. I just wanted to see the man and the little girl who reminded me what humanity really is." She smiled at Rosie. "Your dad's a hero, you know." Rosie's eyes sparkled. "I already knew that." They spent the afternoon talking about life, kindness, and second chances. Avery laughed for the first time in months, not the polished, polite laugh she gave at fundraisers, but a real one, unguarded and warm. Watching her and Rosie talk, Eli saw something soften in himself too. For the first time in years, the ache of loss didn't feel so heavy. As the sun dipped low, painting the sky in gold and pink, Avery stood and said, "Thank you, Eli, not just for saving my life, but for reminding me what it means to live." He smiled faintly. "And thank you for reminding me what hope looks like." A few weeks later she was gone again, back to her world of skyscrapers and meetings, but she never forgot that small house in Maple Ridge. And Eli never forgot her kindness, even if she never told him all she'd done for him behind the scenes. But life, in its strange, poetic way, had one more surprise. A year later, Eli received a letter in the mail. It was an invitation to a charity event in the city, hosted by the Marcel Foundation. He hesitated, unsure. He wasn't a man for fancy suits or bright lights, but Rosie convinced him. When they arrived, Avery was on stage, speaking to hundreds of guests. Her voice was confident, clear, full of purpose. Then, halfway through her speech, she paused. "A year ago," she said, "a stranger saved my life. He didn't ask for money, attention, or recognition. He simply helped, because it was right. And that moment changed everything for me." She looked straight at Eli in the crowd, eyes glistening. "Tonight, I want to honor that man, not with wealth or reward, but with gratitude." Everyone turned as she said his name. Applause filled the room, thunderous and sincere. Eli stood there frozen, overwhelmed, holding Rosie's hand. When he stepped onto the stage, Avery whispered, "Now you can't disappear again." He smiled softly, "Maybe not this time." And as they stood together, beneath the lights, two souls connected by chance and courage, the audience could feel something deeper than wealth or fame. It was a reminder that kindness can build bridges between worlds that were never meant to meet. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like, comment, and share this video, and subscribe to Touch of Kindness for more real and emotional stories that remind us all there's still good in this world. And before you go, comment below, do you believe that kindness always finds its way back? Because sometimes the smallest act of courage can change not just one life, but two.